Hey everyone, this is Daniel with Plumpy Thimble, and this is take 2 of the review of the Digitized Viticulture app. And I say take 2 because I have recorded this whole thing with my microphone off. So let's try this again. For those that don't know and are finding out just now because you've seen the thumbnail of my YouTube video, Viticulture is now an app. What is Viticulture, you ask? It is a worker placement board game, one of my absolute favorites. It is gorgeous looking, it's a blast to play, and in it, you run your own vineyard and you're competing with everyone else to run the best vineyard. So here's what the splash screen looks like. Pretty nice. It's got that art from Beth Sobel, front and center. Fantastic, absolutely love it. But how does it play? I will note that I'm playing this game entirely on my cell phone, and I was curious to see how a bigger game with a footprint. The base game itself has the board, and then each player has a player board. There are resource tokens. There's a lot going on with it, especially if you add the Tuscany expansion, which is probably my biggest con with this, is that it doesn't have the Tuscany expansion yet. And hopefully that will not be the case, because I'm hoping this becomes really popular and they throw us the Viticulture Tuscany expansion very, very soon. So anyway, this is Viticulture. Hit continue if you are familiar with Digidice, which make a number of other board game apps. You're familiar with this screen. You've got your games, ranked, casual, local games. You've got your running games here on the side. The tutorial, and this is something that I was curious about, and it's hard for me to talk on because I'm familiar with how Viticulture works. Understanding how difficult it was to learn the game from scratch based on this tutorial is difficult to say because I'm familiar with the elements of it. That being said, the port is good enough that if you know how Viticulture works, you could easily muscle your way through this without the tutorial. And I played a little bit before going through the tutorial just to see if that was the case, and it certainly was. As a lot of these Digidice games, one thing that people either enjoy or hate is this green arrow. You have to remember to press it if you want to keep going. So basically, the tutorial is fine. I think it does a good job of explaining what each of the spaces do, how the game works, which really, what more could you ask for? And the answer is maybe a little bit more detailed, and one that lets you sort of take turns yourself. One of the biggest complaints that people had right out the gate was that the game was slow, especially the AI. I found the biggest problem was that the animations were slow, and having to confirm everything made the game slower than I would like. So that's why you always go to the settings menu, turn off the effects and the music, speed up the gameplay to fast instead of the normal or slow that it starts on. And again, if you are familiar with the game, I would switch it to seasoned players. If not, leave it on the beginner friendly. All seasoned players does, especially after the first game or so, maybe turn this on. It reduces the amount of times you have to confirm your choice when you make a move. You've got your ranked games, casual games, yada, yada, yada. That's not really part and parcel to the review. But I will show you how this is going to look if you played a two-player game against... actually, let's go local game. Pick a hard player here. As you can see, it's got the Mamas and Papas expansion right in here. So you choose, if you're playing the advanced method, you choose which of your Papas, which of your Mamas to represent your family. Yeah, for sure going with the medium seller one, Papa Josh and Mama Jess. As you can see, it's not really asking me to confirm anything. I have to choose between which of those I want. Clear as day. Like if you are familiar with Viticulture, you know exactly what's going on here. If you don't, the game does a good job of kind of nudging you along. Again, remembering that green arrow in the bottom right, that's kind of the most annoying part here. So there you have it, the summer screen. Spring. What this app does well is it gives you the options available to you and puts them front and center. First things first, spring. I have to choose where I want to go, when I want to wake up, potentially to the detriment of my turn placement. I'm going to go with the extra worker. I kind of like always start with that move, unless I don't, I guess. And so you're going to get this screen that's sort of patchwork-esque. I'm going second, so you're going to see the Grape Gatsby taking his turn first. But you'll notice the areas, the spaces that I can take are highlighted, whereas the spaces, such as the plant vineyard space, the green one in the top right there, are grayed out. And so the options that I can take, front and center, and I'm told what I can do. I can quickly at a glance take a look at my cards by pressing and holding on them. They'll pop right up. If I want to take a look at the winter board, which is not pertinent, it is not pertinent information, which is why it's not front and center, but I can click winter and it will scroll on over to the winter side of the board. Again, not important. But the question is, where's the player board? Right next to the left of the green arrow on the bottom right. Click that and I can see my crush pads, my vineyards, my wine, the buildings that I have and have not built, and how much they cost. This app has done everything that I would hope it would do except come with Tuscany. It gives you all the options available to you, front and center. If you're still confused, you can click the green question mark on the bottom left there. All of a sudden, everything's labeled, and you know what the spaces do, what to do. Also, next to that green question mark, see where it says place a worker there. It gives you instruction on whose turn it is, what's happening, what the current situation is. So I'm just going to start making some terrible moves here, but I can go there. The AI is going to compute. As I said, the biggest complaint was that the AI was slow. I have found that, at least with my phone, and it may depend on your specific phone or your specific system, how it works, but it is working just fine with me after I've sped up those animations. I can pass. If I do that, the AI is going to take as many turns as they want until they want to pass to the next season, just as in the game. And while this is all happening, you can kind of see how this works. You know, as I said, the coolest thing is that the options are presented to you front and center. My biggest issue isn't really a complaint against the game itself, because the game is fantastic. It has done what it set out to do in that it is presenting... Have I called it Agricola a lot this time? I did that a lot in the last recording. It's presenting viticulture just as it should in a digital form. Clearly, concisely, giving you only the options that you need at the moment's notice. And I mentioned Agricola, and I did before too in the recording that no longer exists, but I mentioned Agricola because that is another one of my favorite games on the board. I don't think the app for that, though, does the game justice, because it gives you too much information, and that's sort of the curse of the game itself, is there's a lot of information, but it's overwhelming. Viticulture has a lot of information that you have to process and a lot of choices that you have to make, but it condenses everything to a point of where you only see what you need to see. And sure, that can be a lot sometimes, but it does that very well in making it seem and be manageable. Now, the problem that I have, my biggest problem other than Tuscany not being included, is that I miss the tactile experience. Viticulture is one of my all-time favorite games, and one of the reasons it's one of my all-time favorite games is, as you can see, the artwork's very nice, but the game itself is a tactile experience. There's wooden worker pieces, there's thick cardboard for a number of their components, there is glass beads for the crush pads and for the vineyards and the wine. You don't get any of that here. You certainly get the gameplay. You get the mechanics of the game. You can play the game much, much faster. But you miss out on that experience of having the board in front of you. Now, would I say don't get the app? No, absolutely not. Now, full disclosure, I got a free version of the app because I'm reviewing it. That being said, I had the money lined up and I was rip-roaring and ready to buy this thing day one because I love this game so much. And this app is all that I could have asked for in a viticulture app. In terms of multiplayer asynchronous play, it works very well from the few games that I've played and am currently playing. But the problem is with any game of this size is that asynchronous play, it gets a little dicey in that if you're playing a bunch or there's a good amount of time between turns, you may kind of forget where you're at. Thankfully, it is pretty easy to glean the information that you may have forgotten, both on your opponents, just by pressing their little shield there, or your own, and figuring out where you're at. But that is sort of the nature of the beast with larger games and asynchronous play, where you are taking a turn and then the next person takes their turn within a day or two. It works well enough, but that's just the difficulty with these types of games and that type of play. In terms of AI, love it. It's very smart AI, and is something that I really enjoy. And I enjoy the fact that I can bust out a game of viticulture now without having to set it up, without really having to rely on anyone else. And it is well worth the $10 that they are asking for the app, and go buy it so we can get Tuscany sooner rather than later. Makes me excited for the upcoming Wingspan app, because that's another game that I really, really enjoy. This is a little different than the types of videos that I normally do. That's not to say that I won't do them in the future, but if you enjoyed this, please let me know, because I have a whole lot of board game apps and I've never really reviewed any of them in any depth. So if you like this, please like, subscribe, let me know if this is something you want to see more of in the future. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time, probably in a real life video where you can see my smiling face. So this is sort of a blessing and a curse that you can't see me, and you can only hear the melodious tones of my voice. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.